The security vote in Nigeria is a discretionary fund or allocation granted to government officials, particularly governors, for the purpose of enhancing security and combating crime in their respective states. It is important to note that the security vote is not included in an annual budget, and it runs into billions of naira and can often vary based on the level of security required by individual states within the federation. The history of security vote in Nigeria can be traced back to the military era. During that time, military governors and administrators were granted extra budgetary funds as a means to execute security-related activities without going through the bureaucratic process. These funds were expected to be used for intelligence gathering, financing security agencies, and supporting security-related operations. With the transition to civilian rule in 1999, the security vote system was retained and continued to be allocated to governors, both at the state and federal levels. Its purpose remained the same, focused on addressing security challenges within the state. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu recently approved a 50 billion naira security vote for 7 northern states in Nigeria. President Tinubu's initiative has been reported to be a non-kinetic solution to deal with insecurity and banditry in the country, which has garnered significant attention. This development comes at a critical juncture where the need for effective strategies to combat insecurity has never been more pressing. Guests on Good Morning Nigeria will delve into the classified nature of the security vote in Nigeria, its efficiency in winning wars against terrorism, and the security vote's immunity against intrusion.
All right, many thanks, Ibrahim, for the background report. Our guests are still with us, and they'll still be talking to us on this topic, looking at the Pulaaku initiative. But I'd like to start with Dr. Adamu. First, what is Pulaaku? This morning I had to ask for the correct pronunciation of that word. Pulaaku. Okay, you see, I'm still finding it tough. I'm sure a lot of Nigerians are wondering, what is this? Yes. So what is the Pulaaku initiative? And then what is the aim, really?
Okay, I will start with, I wish a representative of the Office of the Vice President was here, because they are the owners of this initiative, and I am aware that there has been an attempt to get them to speak about it. So I'm hoping going forward that government agencies will take advantage of platforms like this when they are provided, for them to honor the invitation and come and explain to Nigerians what policies they are bringing in. NTA is the largest TV network in Africa, or West Africa, as the case may be. And when you have an opportunity to speak, I think it's a very good opportunity that should not be wasted. Having said that, what we've heard about the Pulaaku initiative, first off, Pulaaku is a full-day word, which, for lack of, in literal terms, would mean modesty, trust, all those values that used to be associated with, honor and the chastity of a Fulani person. So my understanding of that initiative is that it's an attempt to reinvent and re-strengthen those values that were known to be associated with the Fulani person. As far as the policy is concerned, the first time we heard about it was from the Vice President during a public speech in Kano, when he indicated that there were plans, had gone far. And then, of course, after the Tudumbiri incident in Kaduna, he also repeated that and promised that part of the funds from that initiative would be used to rebuild Tudumbiri community after the unfortunate bombing incident. And then, of course, more recently, we heard of the amount that has been set aside for that policy. We've also heard that 7 states have been, identified as beneficiaries of that fund. Now, the relevance and importance... Could you
list the states?
Unfortunately, I don't have them.
We have Sokoto, Kebbi, Katsina, Benue, Zamfara, Niger, and Kaduna.
All right. And all of these states are states that are affected by banditry. And so I think that is the relevance. I was about to make the point that studies have shown that using kinetic means alone would never address banditry issues. It's, in fact, the study says kinetic should only be 20%, while non-kinetic should be 80%. And I think that is the relevance and importance on initiatives like this. They step in to support these non-kinetic measures. However, there are certain elements that if any non-kinetic measure is going to be successful, we must observe those elements. Number one, what is the buy-in of the targeted population? In this instance, the targeted population is the Hada population, a significant number of which are Fulanis. So we'll be interested going forward to see the strategy that the implementers of the policy would use to get the buy-in of that population. I know not too long ago, there was an attempt to bring together about 18 groups that are headed by nomadic and pastoralist, and we know who led that initiative. It will be interesting to see if that person is part of this move. The second point is the transparency with which the policy itself is going to be implemented. I mean, several times we've seen policies come up like this, that, for all intents and purposes, their intentions are good, but unfortunately, because of the manner they are implemented, you find out that the results will never meet the objectives for which they are set up. So for that purpose, I'm encouraging especially the Office of the Vice President to embrace monitoring and evaluation components, show in clear terms, first off, what is the objectives, and then secondly, what are the strategies they intend to use to achieve those objectives, and in doing that, develop key performance indicators that would have timelines, so that you as a journalist, I as an interested Nigerian, can now look and say, okay, based on the KPIs and timelines you've set for this, you've been able to achieve X, Y, Z. If it's shrouded in secrecy in the manner that it is at the moment, then it wouldn't allow us to monitor and evaluate the performances of that. The other thing that I think is also absolutely important is to get the buy-in of the governors. The 7 states that have been listed are headed by governors, and those governors are passionate, at least from what we've seen, in addressing those security challenges in their country, their states. They can provide the platform for which the federal government can reach the affected population. So if they are carried along, I think it will be a win-win situation, as against if they are not carried along. And then, of course, lastly, it's also to ensure inclusion. Women most times are the victims of these types of crisis. So if we involve more women into the whole, and of course youths, the pool from which the non-state actors recruit and try to achieve the heinous activities they achieve are usually youths. So if youths are involved ab initio from the onset of the project, I think the success will be more guaranteed than if they are not involved.
You're right. You've raised some pertinent issues in your response to Nyeri's question. Let's bring in Jonathan Long now. Kabir Adamu spoke about transparency, key performance indicators, a buy-in from the governors of the state, and he also talked about the huge population of women and youths in these areas where these bandits bring them in, give them money, and encourage them to go into crime. 50 billion has been earmarked for this initiative, and like Kabir Adamu said, there's a lot of secrecy surrounding it. It needs to be more open for people to fully understand the initiative. What do you think?
Very much, Jumai. I think it's absolutely right in a democracy for citizens to know what the government is doing, and for the citizens to be engaged in whatever they're doing. So the question of transparency is not just an option, but it is our right as citizens to know what the government is and whether they are engaging with us. And that is the crux of what is happening now in Nigeria, is that how are the citizens being actively engaged in governance? Are we actually engaged? What are participation of citizens in governance? And that is what will translate to what democracy is, because it is government of the people, by the people, and for the people. So how do we fall into this participation? And that means then we should be carried forward, because I think what the Pulaaku is, from my little understanding of it, is something to enhance the living conditions and the livelihoods of the people or the Fulanis in those areas. But then what one will be interested in, and if we have had actually how the policy was developed, was it bottom up or top down, as we usually do? If it's top down, then there will be a lot of efforts that like what Kabir said, for the people to buy in. But if it's bottom up, it means that the initiation of that the policy itself had the citizens involved, those who are affected involved. And they will tell you what are those things that they require immediately, the quick fixes and the long-term things that will enhance their living conditions and livelihood. It's not what we sit down in our air-conditioned offices and think that, look, if we do this thing, it will enhance their livelihood or living conditions. No, there are basic things, but they have their priorities. So the engagement of the citizens is key. Now, getting the governors involved too is key. I have advocated, and I'll continue to advocate, is that there is a disconnect between the governors and the federal government when it comes to this issue of security. The governors want to say, yes, they are the federating units, they are the head of their units, but when it comes to security, security is not dealt with in isolation. And when they come in to governance, like we've seen in the past 8 years, you have seen discordant tones, in fact, sometimes it's even on party lines. Some of them do start engaging with terrorists, thinking that by doing that, they will stop. We saw it in the past, where terrorists came into government houses with Kalashnikov hanged on their necks, collected money, and the next minute they move away, gave respite, came back again. It has not stopped. So I think there should be a holistic approach that either the Office of the National Security Advisor, in conjunction with the National Defense College and probably NIPS, to organize some capacity building for our governors and those involved to understand the concept of hard power, soft power components, the strategy that is being employed by the government, our national security decision-making process, the security architecture that they have, and how they fit into it, and how it can be used effectively in collaboration with the federal government to achieve synergy to provide security for their own citizens. Thinking that being chief security officer is just giving orders to the police or to the military establishment and the rest is what makes them a chief security officer is not. So I think there should be not just the buy-in of the governors, but there has to be some capacity building for them to understand, even if they were not carried along when those policies were being developed, for them to understand the concept itself of the policy and how they intend it to be executed, and how does it fit into their own plans at the state level that they are doing to enhance the livelihood and the living condition and livelihood of their citizens in those areas. That way there will be synergy, there will not be duplication of effort, there will not be wastages. So I think we need to go beyond just the policies, but go right down to see how the implementation is going to be done, and carrying out the implementers at the state, local government levels along. You need to build in the local government into this, because that's where the citizens are. So it is done like the key performance index. Yes, you need those. You need timeline to review the policy and see whether it's working or not. You need actually citizens who should be able to give you these policies are working or not. So when you are talking of evaluation itself, let's have evaluation from down to, and let's have it from top to see how it works. Not what...
All right, General Temlong, of course, you have made very, important, suggestions, or if you like, statements on how, this policy can actually be more impactful. But I want to stay with you, and the reason I'm staying with you is because of the part of the country you're from, This is Pulaaku, and like Dr. Kabir Adamu already mentioned, it's a Fufude word, and it's targeted at the Fulanis in 7 states, to cushion the effect of insecurity. I want to find out from you. We know that not just the 7 states are affected by insecurity in the country. There are other states that are suffering, from the effects of insecurity. Do you really think that, this initiative would be rightly, what's the word now? Do you think it will be taken by other parts of the country who think, well, they should be getting, something like this from the government? Looking at 50 billion naira for each state. Just for a start.
No, not for each state. 50 billion naira for the whole.
Oh, 50 billion naira for the whole state. Well, whether 50 billion for 8 or 15 billion naira for the 7 states. But I just want to find out. There are other states that have been affected by insecurity. Do you really think this is the right step, to handle the insecurity in this country? And how do you feel other parts of the country will perceive this policy?
Thank you very much for asking that question. I was going to even come to it because I think the state of Plateau has been most devastated since the return to democratic rule in 1999. And I think even if we are going to do that pilot project, Plateau should have been one of the states that should have been included. So I think it's quite, and probably we should, when they explain it, we should actually hear whether this is a pilot program and how long will that pilot program last before other states come in. But definitely Plateau should have been amongst the states because we have suffered the brunt of this crisis more than any other state in Nigeria. They are all started recently in the Northwest. We have been in it since 2001. So how do you justify Plateau being left out of this initiative? Probably, well, I don't know how it's done, but I think when we hear from the Office of the Vice President how they pick those states based on what parameters or indices that were used to pick them, we'll get to understand better. But honestly, I thank you very much for bringing it up to the fore. Plateau State and other states that have been involved. In the Northeast, you have the Northeast Development area, just like the South-South, So I think that one covers the Northeast. But what of the other states in the North Central that are not involved? Plateau, I know of Niger State has been devastated a lot too. I don't know that Taraba State is involved and the rest. So I think there is a need actually to expand this thing as quickly as possible to cover this state. Because if you do it in bits and pieces, the tendency is that you are healing the left arm and the right arm is rotting. So you need to heal them simultaneously so that the body can be whole. If not, by the time you want to heal the right arm, it would have been eaten deep so much that it might be paralyzed or it might be amputated. So I think security has to be treated holistic. You don't deal with it compartmentally in bits and pieces. Thank you very much for that question, and I appreciate you for remembering my state for that. Thank you.
Yes, indeed, General Telong. I was wondering myself why Plateau State is not part of this initiative, because I heard Senator Lalong on the floor of the National Assembly saying that Plateau State needs a commission that will be able to take care of the security challenges there and the outcome of it. Now let's come back to the studio here where Kabir Adamu is sitting to fully understand this Pulaaku initiative. During the Buhari administration, we had the National Livestock Transformative, policy, I think. Whatever happened to that policy that now we are going into a Pulaaku initiative? It's all, geared towards, enhancing the living standard of the Fulanis.
Yeah, under the livestock transformation policy, one of the critical components was the establishment of rugas in different states. And I know there was a lot of pushback,
yes,
by different states saying that their lands will not be taken. But a few states bought into the policy.
Like Nasarawa State.
Nasarawa, and if I remember, Zamfara, Kano, and several others. And I know monies were given to those states. So this is, I think, the relevance and importance of transparency. There is a need for perhaps a review of that policy, and a report to be written and made public to Nigerians to know what happened to those policies. I know, as an example, in the case of Zamfara, there was a lot of discussions around where the then governor, who is incidentally a minister now, built the so-called Ruga, and I doubt if it was embraced by the target population. So you probably have facilities that have been built that are wasting there. So this is where I think our National Assembly needs to step in and do a review of that policy, the National Livestock Transformation Policy, and then see how the monies that were disbursed under that policy were utilized. And then more importantly, see if there is a linkage between that policy and then this Pulaaku initiative. Continuity in governance is important, especially given that it's the same political party that was and is at the moment. The objectives are welcome, like we've all indicated. However, it should not be isolated. I agree totally with the general that you can't compartmentalize security. In this instance, you have a threat element that is moving between states. And so if you're going to deal with that threat element, you need to deal with it holistically. And I know as part of the Renewed Hope agenda, there is an element that talks about developing strategies to address security challenges in the various regions. So the idea is to look at the northeast, northwest, north central, south, southwest, and southeast, and come up with strategies that are specific to the threat elements in them. Now, I know I can tell you from where I'm seated that the environment in north central and northwest are almost the same. So the same threat elements that are affecting these two regions can be addressed by the same strategy. So as an example, this Pulaaku initiative, I don't see why it's not embracing the entire 13 states in those two regions. It would have made a lot of sense. And I'm also asking myself, let me be the devil's advocate here. How much is 50 billion for the kind of challenge that we're discussing? 50 billion to address, I mean, even to the Mbiri, if you are going to be honest, that 50 billion will not be able to develop infrastructure in just one community like Tudumbiri.
But, what also comes to my mind, thinking about this initiative is how other initiatives in a bid to solve security challenge has gone in this country. We're seeing, looking at history, beautiful policies on paper. Implementation, like General Temlong, is an issue. And then we have the issue of leaders in these communities taking advantage of initiatives like this just to enrich themselves without anything trickling down to the populace who actually need such support. So what should the government be doing differently this time around? Because, I mean, some people are just sitting in one place in their palaces, in their, in their houses, and then they get all the money and nothing gets to the people.
Exactly, and that's why, when we laid the foundation, myself and the general, we discussed, we highlighted and emphasized the importance of transparency. Transparency would help reduce this. The Europeans say trust is good, but control is better. We trust these leaders, traditional leaders, religious leaders, sometimes political leaders. We trust them. That's why we gave them we voted for them to govern over us. But we can also control them. And we've given some elements on how to control them. We've talked about putting out a strategy. We've talked about key performance indicators. We've talked about being open, transparent with the policy itself. Unfortunately, at the moment, some of those key elements are not being observed. We must say the truth. They are not being observed. And so going forward, we hope that they will be observed better. That policy needs to be made public, let the criteria for the selection of those states be made public. Let's know. Number two, let's know what that 50 billion is going to be used for. I think it's the amount. It doesn't tell me that a lot can be done with that amount. But I mean, even if it's to set the strategy, there are development partners. I know this, that would be happy if you have a transparent policy with clear key performance indicators. There will be development partners that can even come in to support that policy. But if you shroud it in the kind of secrecy that it is at the moment, nobody would put his money into it. Everybody wants to solve the banditry challenge in Nigeria. Nigeria is too important, really, for banditry to continue to afflict it in the manner that it is. So control is absolutely important. And earlier on, I spoke about the role of the National Assembly. Now, it would be interesting to know if the National Assembly had any input in the development of this policy. Now, if they didn't, they're, I think, resuming today or tomorrow. So we're hoping that we'll hear from them. Let them step in to prompt conversations around the policy itself. Ask those critical questions that we're asking at the moment, and where they are not satisfied or where they feel that there is a need to enhance the policy. I mean, they are representatives of the people. I mean, the most recent history of Nigeria should have taught us lessons. They had Al-Majiri School Initiative under Goodluck Jonathan, a beautiful policy, but where is it now? Not too long ago, we spoke about the livestock transformation policy. Where is it at the moment? Now we are going into another one. So, I mean, let's not forget our history too soon. Lessons can be learned from there, and I cannot emphasize enough the role of M&E. I believe that all the MDAs, starting from NTA, yes. your M&E unit,
that's what we're doing now,
should be strengthened. Yes. Let all these MDAs strengthen their M&E units to the point that those M&E units can support the achievement of all objectives. Because what they are going to do is to look at the policy and develop KPIs. And those are the KPIs that will be measured internally first. And then, of course, you now have external elements like the National Assembly that can come and look at it. I don't think we're doing enough. And because this is security, I have over time been speaking about the need to strengthen standards and then M&E within our security architecture. This would help a lot. If we're able to solve the banditry challenge, and that's why I don't want to be misread, the policy is amazing. It's welcome. But if it's not implemented in the manner that we have discussed earlier on, then unfortunately we'll look back just like we've looked back at the Al-Majiri School Initiative and the National Livestock Transformation Policy to say why didn't X, Y, Z, why didn't they do it?
Okay, General Temlong, before in 1 minute, I would like you to, talk about the community that this Pulaaku initiative is targeted at. Usually, the communities do not even know what is going on. How much education do they need? Every time I talk about the NIO coming into the conversation, should they be used to educate, to enlighten people on initiatives like this so that they can understand and key into it and make sure that it is implemented?
Thank you very much, Juma. I think that should have been the first thing in the policy initiation process itself, because you need the National Orientation Agency to come in and start asking the people and then enlightening them on what government wants to do and how do they think it can be done. That way the community buys into that and they see it as their own project because it has been initiated, and they will say, look, we are the ones who started this. I think what we need to do is to interrogate our policy somersault or failures in this country. Why have those policies not been? Because it looks as if those policies are initiated without the input from the community. The community don't have a buy-in. You have so many projects or what elephant things placed in the communities and they vandalize them because they don't even know what they are there for, or they don't even protect those things that have been established for them there. And so the key thing to do is for the community to be brought in. Now, if they have not been brought in, then you need a lot of buy-in, selling out to them, to look, sell these projects to them, let them buy it into it, and let them give you some of the things that you need to actually fine-tune the policy itself in the implementation stage, and how do they come into it to take the ownership of those things. So they have to be involved in the implementation too. More often than not, you see contractors come in, sometimes even with the artisans and the rest, and start working without the community actually getting anything out from those contracts or from the implementation. So you need that buy-in from them. And once they buy in, they see it as their own project, and they hold it and defend it dearly because it is theirs. If you don't do that, then you are just putting projects there that will not stand the test of time, and they will go the same way as the Almajiri schools and the livestock transportation and many other policies that have been initiated.
Many thanks, General Temlong, for your insight on the two topics this morning. We do appreciate you. Of course, this is a conversation that would continue in the coming days, weeks, months. Of course, we want to see it being implemented, and we want the impact felt, of course. So we appreciate you, General Temlong, First Commander of Multinational Joint Task Force, former President of Alumni Association of National Defense College, and Security Consultant. Thank you for joining us again. Thank you for joining us again.
Thank you very much for having me. Have a good day.
Right. Of course, we appreciate Dr. Kabir Adamu, Security Risk Management Expert. Many thanks for your insights once again, Dr. Kabir Adamu.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me too.
In fact, I'm just thinking that very soon we're going to have a program, and then he's going to be one of the presenters. Yes.
Giving me an employment.
All right, and then of course we want to appreciate Yarima Shetima. Unfortunately, network couldn't help us establish a good connection with you, but we hope some other time would hear your insight on
more on the youths,
exactly. So many thanks, Yarima Shetima. Of course, I will take a break now. Good Morning Nigeria continues. We have a third topic. It's a loaded day.